Listen carefully, because most people never understand this part of their journey. Your love story was never random. Nothing that happened to you in relationships was meaningless. Not the people who came into your life. Not the moments that felt right but ended suddenly. And not the endings that broke your heart. Everything had a role, even if it didn't make sense at that time. Because not every connection is meant to last forever. Some people enter your life to teach you something important. They show you what love is. And more importantly, what love is not. Some people come into your life to reveal your emotional strength, to show you how much you can handle, and how much you should never accept again. And some people leave, because if they stayed, they would have taken you off your real path. Even if you don't understand it right now, even if it still hurts to think about it. Life doesn't always remove people to punish you. Sometimes it removes them to protect you. Because real love cannot grow in confusion. It cannot survive in emotional chaos. And it cannot enter a life that is still carrying old pain without healing. So what you went through was not a mistake. It was preparation. You were being shaped through every experience, even the painful ones, slowly, quietly, and deeply, because the version of you that exists now is not the same version who started this journey. You are more aware now, more careful now, more emotionally strong now. And that matters, because everything that comes next in your life will respond to the person you have become, not the person you used to be. And that is where your story begins to shift, quietly, but powerfully. Listen very carefully, because this is where most people misunderstand their life. They think change only happens when they can see it, when they can prove it, when it is obvious. But real change doesn't work like that. Real change begins silently, inside your thoughts, inside your emotions, inside your perception of everything around you. And that is exactly what is happening to you right now. Even if your life looks the same on the outside, even if your situation feels unchanged, something inside you is not the same anymore. The way you think about love, the way you respond to people, the way you value attention, the way you recognize emotional safety, it is all shifting, slowly, but permanently. You are no longer the same person who used to tolerate confusion. You are no longer the same person who used to chase clarity from others. You are no longer the same person who ignored your own emotional boundaries. Something has changed in you. And because of that, your entire relationship experience will begin to shift too. Now listen closely. This kind of transformation does not happen overnight. It happens through experiences, through silence, through disappointment, through reflection, and through emotional growth that no one else can see. Every moment you felt confused in love was actually building clarity inside you. Every time you felt hurt was actually building emotional awareness. Every time something didn't work out was actually teaching you what you don't want anymore. And that is powerful, because most people never reach this level of understanding. They repeat the same emotional patterns. But you are starting to break them, and that changes everything about your future. Now here's what begins to happen when someone reaches this stage. You stop being impressed by temporary attention. You stop confusing intensity with love. You stop accepting emotional instability as normal. And slowly, your standards rise. Not because you are forcing them, but because your awareness has changed. And when awareness changes, attraction changes. Life responds differently. People respond differently. And your experiences start aligning in a new direction. Now listen carefully. There is also something happening on a deeper emotional level in your life path. The connections tied to your future are also moving through a phase of reflection. Not confusion anymore, but reflection. A phase where thoughts become deeper, where life feels more serious, where emotional priorities start changing. Even if nothing is being spoken out loud, even if nothing is visible yet, there is a shift happening in mindset. A shift toward stability, toward clarity, toward understanding what truly matters in life. And this is important, because when someone starts thinking about stability instead of confusion, their entire emotional direction changes. They begin to value peace more than excitement. They begin to value consistency more than unpredictability. And they begin to think differently about relationships, not as temporary emotions, but as long-term life decisions. And that is where transformation begins. Because real decisions are never made in chaos. They are made in clarity. And clarity is what is slowly forming right now. Quietly, naturally, and without pressure. Even if you cannot see it yet, something is aligning. inside you, and around your emotional journey. And that alignment is what will eventually change everything. Listen very carefully, because this is the stage where everything begins to feel different. Not because something dramatic is happening outside, but because something powerful is shifting inside the emotional direction of your life. There comes a point in every person's journey where feelings are no longer enough on their own, where emotions start turning into thoughts, and thoughts slowly begin turning into direction. And that is exactly what is beginning to happen now. The confusion that once controlled emotional decisions is starting to lose its influence. The uncertainty that once created overthinking is slowly fading, and something else is taking its place. Clarity, even if it is quiet, even if it is gradual, even if it is not fully visible yet. Clarity is forming. Now listen closely. When clarity enters a person's emotional world, they begin to see relationships differently. They stop focusing on temporary excitement and start focusing on long-term stability. They stop chasing intensity and start valuing consistency. They stop tolerating confusion and start choosing peace. And this shift is not small. It changes everything. Because when someone starts valuing emotional stability, their entire approach to love begins to evolve. They become more thoughtful, more careful, more intentional, not because they are afraid, but because they are aware. And awareness changes decisions. Now listen, in every real emotional journey, there is a moment where inner reflection becomes stronger than outer noise, where a person starts thinking more deeply about life, about what they want, about what kind of future they are building, and about what kind of connection actually supports that future. And in that stage, something very important happens. The idea of a serious relationship starts to feel different. Not emotional confusion, not temporary attachment, but something meaningful, something stable, something that fits into long-term life direction. And even if no one is talking about it openly, even if nothing is being expressed clearly, the thought itself becomes more frequent, more serious, and more grounded. Because when people enter reflection, they don't stay in surface-level emotions anymore. They start thinking about real life, real stability, real emotional safety, and real future alignment. And this is where transformation begins to take shape, quietly, but deeply, because real change is never loud in the beginning. It starts in the mind, it grows in reflection, and it becomes clarity over time. Now listen closely. This stage is not about action yet. It is about understanding. Understanding what has value. Understanding what brings peace. Understanding what creates emotional balance. And understanding what does not belong in the future anymore. And when that understanding becomes strong enough, it naturally begins to influence decisions. Because no one can stay in confusion forever. At some point, the mind chooses clarity. And when clarity is chosen, everything begins to shift, even if nothing outside looks different yet. Internally, a new direction is forming, a direction toward emotional stability, toward long-term thinking, toward meaningful connection, and away from confusion and inconsistency. And that is the real transformation happening now. Not fast, not loud, but real and irreversible. Listen very carefully, because this is the part most people never fully understand in their lifetime. They spend years questioning their delays, questioning their silence, questioning why certain things didn't work out, but they rarely stop long enough to understand what was actually happening behind it. Because not everything that feels like delay is delay, and not everything that feels like loss is loss. Sometimes what you call waiting is actually preparation in disguise. Now listen closely. There are moments in your life where nothing seems to move. No answers, no clarity, no direction, just silence. And in that silence, most people assume nothing is happening. But silence is never empty. It is where transformation happens the most. Because when life removes distractions, when emotional noise reduces, when external confusion slows down, that is when internal growth begins. Quietly, deeply, and permanently. And that is exactly what your journey has been. A phase of inner construction, not visible to others, but deeply real within you. Every experience you went through that didn't last, every situation that didn't continue, every emotional ending that confused you, was not random. It was shaping your emotional awareness. Because without those experiences, you would not understand what peace feels like. You would not understand what emotional safety means. and you would not understand what you refuse to accept anymore. Now listen carefully. There is a stage in life where emotional repetition finally breaks, where you stop attracting the same confusion, where you stop accepting the same patterns, where you stop ignoring your own inner voice. And that stage is not luck. It is growth. It is awareness. It is maturity forming slowly inside you. And once that shift begins, your entire emotional world reorganizes itself. Not suddenly, but gradually, in ways you only understand later. Now here is the deeper truth. Sometimes life does not remove people to punish you. It removes them to reset your emotional baseline, so you can recognize something healthier when it appears. Because if nothing ever ended, you would never value stability. If nothing ever broke, you would never recognize peace. And if nothing ever confused you, you would never appreciate clarity. So even the painful parts of your journey were not against you. They were building you, shaping your emotional intelligence, strengthening your boundaries, and preparing your heart for something more aligned with your growth. Now listen closely. There comes a point where you are no longer the same version of yourself. Your reactions change. Your tolerance changes. Your emotional responses change. And your expectations quietly rise. Not because you are demanding more, but because you have experienced enough to know what you deserve. And that change is powerful because it silently removes you from old cycles. Without force, without struggle, without effort, just awareness. And when awareness increases, everything in your external life begins to adjust accordingly. Because life always responds to the version of you that is present right now, not the version you used to be. And that is why this stage feels so important. Even if nothing dramatic is happening outside, everything important is happening inside. Slowly, consistently, and permanently. Listen very carefully, because this is the final part of this message. And if you are still here right now, it means something inside you is searching for closure. Not confusion anymore, not overthinking anymore, but understanding and peace. So take a moment and really absorb this, because there is something important you need to realize about your entire journey. Nothing you have gone through has been meaningless. Not the waiting, not the silence, not the emotional ups and downs, and not the moments you felt like nothing was happening in your life. Because even when it looked like nothing was changing, everything important was changing inside you. Quietly, step by step, without noise, without attention, and without immediate results. Now listen, there were people you thought would stay forever, but they didn't. And at the time, it felt like loss. It felt like rejection. It felt like confusion. But over time, you begin to understand something deeper. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay in your final chapter. Some people arrive to teach you emotional awareness. Some arrive to show you patterns you needed to break. And some arrive to prepare you for something more aligned with your growth. Even if it came through pain, even if it came through confusion, even if it came through endings you didn't understand, it still had purpose. Now listen closely. There is a moment in every person's life where they finally look back, not with pain, not with anger, but with understanding. And in that moment, everything starts to make sense. You begin to see why certain doors closed. You begin to understand why certain people left. And you begin to realize why certain things didn't work out. And instead of feeling lost, you feel something different. You feel clarity. Because clarity changes everything. It removes emotional weight. It removes confusion. It removes the need to overthink the past. And it replaces it with acceptance. Now here is something very important. You are not the same person you used to be. Your emotional awareness has changed. Your boundaries have changed. Your understanding of relationships has changed. And your expectations have quietly evolved. And because of that, your future experiences will also be different. Not because life suddenly changes, but because you have changed. And life always responds to who you are becoming, not who you were. Now listen closely. Sometimes the biggest transformation in a person's life does not come from external change. It comes from internal alignment. When your thoughts, your emotions, and your understanding finally start working together, instead of pulling you in different directions. And when that happens, you stop repeating old cycles. You stop attracting confusion. And you stop accepting things that do not bring peace. Not because you force it, but because you naturally outgrow it. And that is one of the most powerful shifts a person can experience. Now listen, life does not always give answers immediately, but it always gives understanding later, when you are ready to see it clearly. And one day, you will look back at this entire season of your life, and you will realize something very simple. Everything was preparing you, not breaking you, not losing you, but building you into someone stronger, calmer, more aware, and more aligned with what actually belongs in your life. And in that realization, there is peace. Because when you understand your journey, you no longer question it. You accept it. And when you accept it, you finally move forward, without confusion, without regret, and without emotional weight from the past. So if you take anything from this entire message, take this. Do not rush your journey. Do not compare your timing to others. And do not assume silence means nothing is happening. Because sometimes, the most important changes in your life are the ones you cannot see yet, but will only understand later. And when that moment comes, everything will finally make sense. Quietly, completely, and peacefully. If you are still here, don't ignore this moment. Maybe this message didn't come to you by accident. Maybe it came at the exact time you needed clarity, peace, or direction in your life. Whatever you are going through right now, just remember this. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. And you are not stuck. Sometimes life doesn't change loudly. It changes quietly in the background. Every delay, every silence, every confusion has been shaping you into a stronger version of yourself. Now I want to ask you something simple. If you believe your life is entering a better phase, type, Sparkles, I trust my journey. Let this be your moment of peace, faith, and emotional reset. And if this message touched you even a little, don't scroll away silently. Because sometimes one comment becomes the start of a new mindset. Dizzy type, I trust my journey. If you believe your life is aligning right now, Sparkles, if this message gave you even a little peace, comment, I am ready, Dizzy.